Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. So, today we're looking at a closer look into a fantastic model, which is the McDonnell Douglas F-15B. Now, we've got a quite unique situation here. This F-15 Eagle in a classic NASA colors with a serial number 836, which this aircraft belongs to the NASA Dryden Flight Research Center off of Edwards Air Force Base in Cali, circa 2022. Of course, this particular aircraft was participant in the air show off of Edwards Air Force Base for that particular year. And you may have noticed in the intro montage that this F-15 is equipped with famous AIM-54 Phoenix missile. That's a bit of an unusual configuration for the F-15, right? So what are the reasons behind it? However, it'll be a key part of our review today. Folks, I'll follow my usual format. We'll get into the history first and then break down the model details toward the end. So let's drop right into it, shall we? So in 1993, the Air Force handed the keys to their F-15 to NASA for its new active program, which was aimed for short advanced control technology for integrated vehicles, basically building off of their previous digital flight control programs and testing performance control, while testing aircraft to land on extremely short runways to increase aircrew survivability and that type of nature. So what are the objectives of this program and how did this program came to be? So initially, the F-15 active program was a collaborative effort led by NASA using an F-15 aircraft that was originally designed by the McDonnell Douglas. So NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center managed this project, which was built upon previous research from programs like the F-15 airframe. Further, NASA opted to retain the unusual wing layout of their new F-15 and so-called the active program. However, added a new Pratt & Whitney for enhancing the pitch and yaw, the balance of the aircraft, and also adding a beam nozzles on a new sets of engines. So the F-100PW-229 performed unlike its previous thrust vector control apparatus, which they used some kind of sophisticated actuators to control the afterburners. Well, these new nozzles offered a full 360-degree arc in which the nozzles could redirect outflow. As a result, NASA's F-15 active was the most acrobatically maneuverable Eagle ever to fly. Just incidentally, these programs were never meant to lead to a full-scale production design, and were instead all about gathering valuable information about different flight regimes. Basically served as a strictly testing airframe demonstrator, as well as having the effect of canards performance. Well, the canards combined with the thrust vectoring, which drastically reduced the length of runway needed for the takeoff and landing. This program also tested a system specifically designed to identify control surface failures and automatically reconfigure other control surfaces to compensate for the damage, basically allowing, allowing the pilots to either continue the mission or the land bird safely. So the idea was to use Eagle's powerful afterburning turbofan engines and the incredible amount of lift offered by its design to ferry rockets up to a high velocities and altitudes before releasing them to ignite and fly. So you see, launching an orbital payloads from an aircraft would probably eliminate the need for expensive rocket launch facilities, right? while making it possible for aircraft like an F-15 to rapidly deploy small payloads into orbit from anywhere on the planet with an airstrip and a hangar. It was a relatively low-cost solution. Further, in the early 2000s, NASA came up with a plan to use the Air Force highly modified F-15 Eagle and the Navy's famed AIM-54 Phoenix missile. As we all know, the AIM-54 Phoenix was an F-14 exclusive weapon specifically designed to work with the Tomcat's AWAC-9 radar system to engage multiple targets at a very long distances, primarily for fleet defense. Now, coming back to the subject at hand, so they used the AIM-54 Phoenix to slash the cost of experimenting with hypersonic flight. The effort wasn't aimed at developing a new capability of America's fleet of air superiority fighters, but rather at learning more about the unique challenges of flight at a speeds of over Mach 5, or the hypersonic barrier, so to speak. Now, that being said, be aware that using a modified AIM-54 Phoenix missile on a highly modified F-15B by NASA is not a combat configuration by any stretch of imaginations. The F-15 carrying the Phoenix was a testbed platform, not a combat aircraft, and the Air Force never fielded this configuration for operational use. Incidentally, the AIM-54 Phoenix was highly modified. They didn't just brought it from the Navy surplus and mounted on the F-15 aircraft. So, what kind of modification did they do to the AIM-54 Phoenix missile? Well, NASA Dryden aircraft and avionics technicians had their explosive warheads completely removed, as well as their tracking and guidance systems, basically replacing them with smaller, more lightweight guidance system. The missiles were also heavily instrumented to obtain and transmit test data from experiments in such areas as thermal protection materials and boundary layer transition and aerodynamics at a hypersonic speeds. Now, with all that stated, so why did NASA choose specifically the F-15 for their mission? Why didn't they choose other platforms, right? So, generally speaking, a few aircraft in aviation history have matched the reputation or the raw power of the F-15 Eagle over decades. So, one of the main reasons NASA had to choose this aircraft, if we go back in time and remember back in 1985 during the ASAT program, which conducted by the United States Air Force. This aircraft carried out a major mission by carrying a large ASM-135 missile and launching it into the space, which successfully destroyed the Solwind P-78 satellite basically in a low orbit. After that major mission, the aircraft validated its capability for the space operations. It's worth noting that I've already did do a video on that topic approximately, I want to say about a year ago. If some of you are interested, feel free to bump that video. Anyway, despite this bird's age, the F-15 nevertheless remains a highly successful aircraft even with its latest variants, including the next generation of the F-15EX models, which is the latest Eagles out there, which have better engines, better avionics, etc. Of course, this is going to be a topic for a different day, but I digress. Moving on, NASA chose the F-15 for its suitability as a testbed for advanced technologies like a digital flight and engine controls category, which allows for complex research projects in aerodynamics and propulsion. The F-15's large airframe provided a space for a new equipment, and its performance and advanced systems basically were ideal for testing innovations, basically for self-repairing flight controls and propulsion control systems used for space shuttles and thermal tiles, allowing for rapid reprogramming and evaluation of different systems without altering the core software. And after all that, because of the F-15 was built with a general purpose computers, the earlier models, that being said, to enable rapid continuous upgrades, basically facilitated easy integration of a new technology, allowing NASA's crew for rapid reprogramming and evaluation of different systems without necessitating altering the aircraft onboard core software or other computers, so to speak. Another key factor is the F-15's, as I've mentioned, the F-15's large airframe, which provided space for new equipment also because the F-15 has very powerful engines. That being said, since the aircraft has a great thrust-to-weight ratio, allowing it to reach speeds of well over Mach 2 and altitudes above 60,000 feet. This capability was crucial specifically for NASA research programs, so they could easily mount the large AIM-54 Phoenix missile and other required test instrumentations. And also, it was a crucial for the AIM-54 Phoenix missile. Basically, boosted the performance and maximized the flight envelope of the Phoenix missile. So, by releasing it from a high altitude, this gave the missile a running start to achieve hypersonic speeds. For example, let's say the missile can catch up speed of Mach 3 or Mach 5 rapidly. So coming back to the subject of um, NASA A-36 aircraft, well, as I've mentioned earlier, it's basically a highly modified F-15B, which is a two-seater variant, and is produced by the McDonnell Douglas, used primarily for testing advanced propulsion concepts. It's based at a Agencies of Armstrong Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base in Southern Cali. Folks, this is one of the fastest birds. This considered one of the fastest eagles out there. No doubt some of you are watching me saying this. Probably they're going to jump on a comment section saying, oh no, the F-15EX is the fastest, is the greatest. Yeah, you're wrong, sir. While I agree with that, but still, this is one of the fastest eagles out there. So, anywho, NASA acquired this bird in 1993, and I believe from the Hawaii Air National Guard. NASA then modified it to support their test programs. They made it 1,000 pounds lighter than any other F-15s flying in the world, and also installed a new modern engines and ditched the old ones entirely. So this bird is equipped with a very powerful Pratt & Whitney F100 PW220 engines, or turbofan engines, excuse me, I should say, which make this particular F-15 with a tail number 836 platform the oldest and the fastest flying F-15 in the world. Incidentally, the engines are equipped with more advanced technology to improve the durability and the reliability of the aircraft, and of course is 100% modified by NASA for its research purposes, as well as to enhance the NASA's experiments programs so they could carry not only the Navy's decommissioned AIM-54 Phoenix missile, but also a variety of instruments and sensors, so to speak. So I think the NASA's F-15 are invaluable assets to America's aerospace industry. The research trickles down to helping make flight safer and more efficient for everyone in both the military and the civilian sectors. Given that the F-15 first flew in 1972, it's remarkable to see this aircraft is still performing to this day. Folks, the F-15 is one of the greatest fighters out there. It's the backbone of the United States Air Force. Thankfully, the Eagle's legacy is far from over, so this aircraft is still in active service with NASA as I make this video, and I'm sure the F-15 story is a long way from being done. Now, that being said, although a comprehensive history of this aircraft was beyond the scope of this video, at least we did dive into its time with NASA and the specific purposes it served. So, for some of you out there, rest assured, definitely we'll revisit the topic of the F-15 in the subsequent videos as time allows. So, we'll leave that tangent and let's focus on the model. Obviously, this model from Hobbymaster, of course, in 1/72nd scale. The model number is HA4572. Now, before going any further with the model details, you might have noticed a small change from the intro footage. Well, I decided to give the engine nozzles a custom touch, so be aware they won't look like this if you get the model out of the box. This is not your typical Hobbymaster F-15 engine nozzles. Incidentally, this is number 9th F-15 in my collection. As far as I know, I did modify them all at this point. Thank goodness I did that, because out of the box, the Hobbymaster generic ones are just lifeless and anemic. For those who are new to this channel, I have brought this subject up multiple times before in my earlier videos, and I've talked a lot about this. I've talked about this, what's a phrase, eloquently and succinctly. The engine nozzles on all Hobbymaster F-15s is a major flaw and overall letdown of the F-15 tooling. I mean, don't get me wrong, the rest of the F-15 model is great, you know, other than just the engine nozzles. And I think this is their weak point, or shall we say, this is their theme with every Hobbymaster F-15. I would say if Hobbymaster would have changed the entire design of these nozzles, I think it would have bring reverberations to their F-15 tooling. I never defame the Hobbymaster product. It's always a top notch in my opinion. I love Hobbymaster product. It's my favorite. After being a collector for many years, and I've noticed a few persistent issues with a certain models, specifically the F-15 engine nozzles. So in my videos, I go over some of these concerns and ultimately offer suggestions for how the tooling could be improved. And I earnestly hope that the product team at Hobbymaster sees this as a small tweak. Basically, this could make a big difference for collectors who care about historical accuracy. That being said, I'm fruity positive, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who's unhappy about those flaws. I'm sure many of you out there share the same impressions. Anyway, I think we've covered that, and hoping that discussion was sufficiently useful. So let's start with a paint scheme. The paint scheme is perfectly executed. The finish of this bright white looks fantastic. Folks, I must say the paint work on this NASA F-15 model is phenomenal. It's an absolutely gorgeous model. The details are so breathtaking. Folks, even the camera can't fully capture the true beauty of this model. This is something you have to see in person. Well, Hobbymaster NASA models in general are always popular, and they did an excellent work with this particular model. For example, the NASA insignia and the aircraft serial number, such as the A36 on the vertical stabilizer, other markings such as the Armstrong Flight Research Center, the formation collision lights across the fuselage are modeled precisely. The cockpit details and the landing gear are perfectly executed. In terms of accessories, you'll get two sets of removable canopies for opening and close, and you'll get two typical Hobbymaster pilot figures painted in basically brown flight suit. You'll get two sets of dorsal speed brake is situated on the upper rear fuselage and the spine of the aircraft. Also, you'll get two sets of configurable air intakes. Um, Basically are functional, while the real F-15 has variable geometry air intakes that tips up and tips down to regulate the airflow in any position, well, depending on the aircraft speed profile. So recently, Hobbymaster, they came up with this brilliant design, and I appreciate the smart move that Hobbymaster made with their F-15 tooling, which now include a configurable air intakes, which allows the collectors to showcase a model in more different configurations. In terms of installing those air intakes, it may sound they're a little persnickety at the beginning, but once you know the trick, uh, you'll be good to go. Unlike what we seen, let's say, with JC wings or Caliber. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to say. Like, I'm speechless. Like, I do have some of these in my collection, and the fitment issues are just ridiculous. They're just terrible. Anyway, uh, I thought there was going to be a little predicament installing them, but turns out not to be. So anyway, the what I was about to say, the rear horizontal stabilizers are static. They don't move, which is good in my perspective. So Hobbymaster's strategy is simple. Less is more. Fewer movable parts mean a tougher model and protected reputation, while some other manufacturers prioritize the intricate moving features. However, Hobbymaster follows a different philosophy, and I totally agree with that. You don't want to have a lot of movable parts on a model, right? Because you'll be more susceptible for breakage. Moving on, the accuracy of the panel lines is on point. Since this aircraft is a NASA bird, you don't get the full weapons package, such as, let's say, the external fuel tanks or air-to-air missiles or air-to-ground bombs. Um, you don't get any of these other than just one AIM-54 Phoenix missile, and I think that's a pretty realistic, which reflects the mission profile. The details of the AIM-54 Phoenix missile formed well. Also, a stand is included for a flight posture. That's all for the model, folks. It's another excellent release from Hobbymaster. I'm a big fan of the NASA birds. Um, I do have several other models of NASA livery in my collection. They're pretty neat. It looks pretty darn nice. But this particular F-15, I must say, it's a top tier model. I'd absolutely recommend it for my fellow collectors, and especially modifying the engine nozzles is what made this model a real bee's knees, right? Um, all in all, it's a gorgeous model other than the nature design of the engine nozzles, and hopefully Hobbymaster will one day revise their F-15 tooling to include more detailed and more accurate engine nozzles. I mean, if they charge a little extra, so be it. I'm on board. I mean, I don't know about you all out there, but at least that way I don't have to do this step on every purchase, right? So get it. It's a beautiful build. It's eye-catching. I am so proud of how Hobbymaster brought this model to life. So kudos to Hobbymaster. However, don't be concerned about the engine nozzles, although I know I've been sitting here and rambling about the engine nozzles. um, but that's just me here, being a little nitpicking about the details. You know, well, you guys can consider this as a, what's a phrase? Just a personal observations, and that's all. So get it while it's still priced affordably. You don't want to end up around those corners paying a painful price. Um, to get one of those, right? The earlier, the better. Now, there is one important note to make here. Please note that some features and accessories seen on the intro shots are optional purchases, and these are not included with the base model, such as the crew ladder, the hydraulic pressure truck system, the wheel chocks, etc. So yeah, might be a repeated for some of you, but it's important point that I want to make sure all our viewers understand what I'm doing in this channel. And that concludes today's video. Thank you for watching and hoping you guys enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in what's coming next, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Remember, liking the videos helps the YouTube algorithm basically recommend it to more people so we can reach out more folks just like you. Also, I'm working hard to keep up the videos. And remember, your support is what makes it possible. Unfortunately, many people don't realize the significant amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to create these historical videos. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll do my best to join the conversation. Thanks for watching again. Patriot sign off. We'll catch you around.